Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, written in the 4th century BCE, remains one of the most significant works in the Western philosophical tradition. The treatise presents Aristotle's views on ethics, focusing on the nature of human happiness, the virtues necessary for a good life, and the practical wisdom required for moral decision-making. Aristotle approaches ethics with a systematic, empirical method, drawing on observations of human nature and behavior to formulate his ideas. The purpose of life, happiness as the highest good. Aristotle begins the Nicomachean Ethics by addressing a central question: what is the ultimate purpose of human life? He argues that all human actions aim at some good, but there must be a supreme good that is desirable for its own sake. Aristotle identifies this ultimate good as eudaimonia, a term often translated as happiness or flourishing. For Aristotle, happiness is not merely a fleeting emotion but a state of living well and fulfilling one's potential as a rational being. According to Aristotle, happiness is the final end of all human endeavors. It is self-sufficient, meaning that once achieved, it lacks nothing. Aristotle emphasizes that happiness is an activity rather than a passive state, and it is achieved through the exercise of virtue. Virtue, for Aristotle, is a disposition to act in accordance with reason, which is the defining feature of human beings. The doctrine of the mean, virtue as moderation. Central to Aristotle's ethical theory is the concept of virtue as a mean between two extremes. This idea is often referred to as the doctrine of the mean. Aristotle argues that every virtue is a balance between excess and deficiency. For example, courage is the mean between recklessness, excess, and cowardice, deficiency. Similarly, generosity is the mean between prodigality, excess, and stinginess, deficiency. The doctrine of the mean does not imply that moderation is always the correct choice, but rather that virtue involves choosing the right amount in any given situation. Aristotle stresses that this requires practical wisdom or phronesis, the intellectual virtue that enables one to make sound moral judgments. Practical wisdom helps individuals discern the right action in complex situations, balancing desires and rational considerations. The role of moral virtue in a good life. For Aristotle, moral virtue is an essential component of a good life. He distinguishes between intellectual virtues, which pertain to the mind, and moral virtues, which pertain to character and behavior. While intellectual virtues, such as wisdom and understanding, are developed through teaching and learning, moral virtues are cultivated through habituation. Aristotle asserts that by repeatedly performing virtuous actions, individuals can develop virtuous character traits. Moral virtues, such as courage, temperance, and justice, enable individuals to live in harmony with others and achieve personal fulfillment. Aristotle believes that humans are social animals by nature, and moral virtues are crucial for maintaining a just and cooperative society. A virtuous person not only benefits themselves but also contributes to the well-being of the community. Friendship and its role in the good life. One of the most distinctive features of Aristotle's ethical theory is his emphasis on friendship as an essential part of a flourishing life. In Book 8 of the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle distinguishes between three types of friendship: friendships of utility, friendships of pleasure, and friendships of virtue. Friendships of utility are based on mutual benefit, while friendships of pleasure are based on shared enjoyment. Friendships of virtue, however, are the highest form of friendship, as they are based on mutual admiration of each other's character. Aristotle argues that friendships of virtue are rare but essential for achieving happiness. Such friendships are long-lasting and deeply fulfilling, as they are founded on mutual respect and a shared commitment to the good. In these friendships, individuals support each other in living virtuous lives. Aristotle views true friendship as an extension of self-love, as virtuous individuals see their friends as reflections of themselves. The relationship between virtue and pleasure. Aristotle rejects the idea that virtue and pleasure are incompatible. Instead, he argues that virtuous actions are naturally pleasurable to those who are properly habituated. For a virtuous person, acting in accordance with reason and fulfilling their potential brings a sense of satisfaction and joy. However, Aristotle also acknowledges that pleasure is not the ultimate goal of life, it is a byproduct of living virtuously. Aristotle distinguishes between higher and lower pleasures, with the highest pleasures being those that arise from the exercise of reason. Intellectual activities, such as contemplation and philosophical inquiry, provide the deepest and most lasting forms of pleasure. In contrast, bodily pleasures are fleeting and often distract individuals from more meaningful pursuits. Justice as the highest social virtue. Justice plays a central role in Aristotle's ethics, and he devotes much of Book 5 of the Nicomachean Ethics to a discussion of justice. Aristotle defines justice as the complete exercise of virtue in relation to others. He argues that justice is the highest social virtue because it involves treating others fairly and promoting the common good. Aristotle distinguishes between distributive justice and corrective justice. Distributive justice concerns the fair allocation of resources and honors in a society, while corrective justice addresses the rectification of wrongs and the restoration of balance. Aristotle also emphasizes the importance of equity, which involves applying justice with flexibility and consideration of individual circumstances. Contemplation and the highest form of happiness. In the final book of the Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle turns to the question of the highest form of happiness. While he has previously emphasized the importance of moral virtue, he concludes that the highest form of happiness is found in contemplation, or the life of the mind. Contemplation, or theoria, is the most godlike activity, as it involves the exercise of pure reason and the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. Aristotle argues that contemplation is the most self-sufficient and continuous activity, and it provides the greatest pleasure. While moral virtues are necessary for achieving a good life, Aristotle suggests that the contemplative life is superior because it allows individuals to transcend the limitations of the material world and engage with eternal truths. In this sense, the contemplative life is the fullest realization of human potential. The importance of education and habituation. Aristotle places great emphasis on education and habituation in the development of moral virtue. He argues that individuals are not born virtuous but must be trained to become virtuous through repeated practice. Education, for Aristotle, is not limited to intellectual instruction but includes moral and emotional development as well. Aristotle believes that a well-ordered society must provide proper moral education to its citizens, as virtuous individuals are essential for the stability and prosperity of the community. He also stresses the importance of good laws and institutions in promoting virtue. A just political system, according to Aristotle, is one that encourages citizens to develop and practice virtue. Practical wisdom and the importance of deliberation. While moral virtue is essential for living a good life, Aristotle emphasizes that practical wisdom, or phronesis, is equally important. Practical wisdom is the intellectual virtue that enables individuals to deliberate effectively about what is good and beneficial in specific circumstances. Unlike theoretical wisdom, which deals with universal truths, practical wisdom is concerned with the application of moral principles to real-world situations. Aristotle argues that practical wisdom is necessary for exercising moral virtue, as it allows individuals to make informed decisions about how to act virtuously. Practical wisdom involves not only knowledge of general ethical principles but also an understanding of the particularities of each situation. It requires experience, perception, and the ability to weigh different factors in making a moral choice. Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics provides a rich and systematic account of human happiness, virtue, and the good life. By emphasizing the importance of moral education, practical wisdom, and the cultivation of virtue, Aristotle offers a vision of ethics that is grounded in human nature and practical experience. His doctrine of the mean, his insights into friendship, and his exploration of justice and contemplation have shaped ethical thought for over 2,000 years and continue to resonate with readers today. In Aristotle's view, the good life is one of balance, reason, and virtue, a life that fulfills our potential as rational beings and brings lasting happiness.